The words came from the last person he ever expected. The black maid who scrubbed his floors and saw everything he was blind to. Your enemies will win if you follow this map. Antonio Reyes had survived 20 years in the blood-soaked world of organized crime by trusting no one. His most loyal lieutenant had just laid out the perfect deal. The route was clean. The location secure. But when she spoke, his smile, the one he'd worn like armor for 2 decades, died. Because she'd noticed something no one else had. Something that would either save his life or destroy them both. The coordinates were wrong. And the woman who warned him? She'd just made herself the next target. The question was, had she saved him? Or walked them both into a trap? Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. If you are hooked in and ready to enjoy the story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments section where you are watching from, because tomorrow I'll be giving you an interesting story such as this one and you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin. Antonio sat in his leather chair like a king on a throne, fingers steepled beneath his chin, dark eyes absorbing every detail of the map spread before them. The warehouse district, his lieutenant, Gabriel, pointed to a red circle on the map. Neutral ground. The Costas agreed to meet here, sign the treaty, end this war. His finger traced a route through the city's veins. We take this road. Avoid the east side entirely. Clean. Simple. Antonio said nothing. He rarely did until he was certain. Power, he'd learned, lived in the space between words. Outside the study door, Nadia Baptiste moved like a whisper. Her dark hands gripped the handle of the vacuum cleaner, her uniform crisp despite the late hour. She'd learned long ago how to make herself invisible. A survival skill passed down from her grandmother, who'd cleaned houses in Georgia, and her mother, who'd done the same in New York. Be quiet. Be quick. Be invisible. The mantra had kept them alive. But invisibility had an advantage. People said everything in front of you when they forgot you had ears. What about Romano's crew? Antonio's voice was silk over steel. They've been quiet. Too quiet. Paid off, Gabriel assured him too quickly. They won't interfere. Nadia's hand paused on the vacuum switch. She'd heard Romano's name 3 times this week, always in whispers, always when Gabriel thought no one was listening. She'd also seen him on the phone in the garden yesterday, his voice low and urgent, his back to the cameras. The timeline? Antonio asked. 72 hours. Thursday midnight. Antonio's smile emerged, the one he wore like armor that never reached his eyes. Then we prepare. The men filed out, their expensive shoes clicking against marble. Nadia pressed herself against the wall as they passed. Gabriel's cologne was too sweet, cloying. She'd always hated that smell. When the door closed, Antonio remained at his desk. Nadia watched him through the crack, saw how the smile dissolved the moment he was alone. How his shoulders sagged, just for a breath, before he straightened again. How he touched the silver frame on his desk, a photo he never discussed, a boy who looked like him, frozen at 17. She knew that look. She'd worn it herself. Nadia pushed her cart into the study. Excuse me, Mr. Reyes. I'll be quick. He didn't look up. She might as well have been furniture. She worked efficiently, dusting shelves lined with books he probably never read, straightening chairs that were already straight. But her eyes kept drifting to the map still spread on his desk. The red circle. The marked route. And then she saw it. The coordinates in the corner, written in pencil beneath the printed numbers. 40.7589 degrees north, 73.9851 degrees west. Her brother had been a delivery driver before he died. She'd helped him navigate 1,000 times, memorized the city like a prayer. Those coordinates weren't the warehouse district. They were the old pier. The abandoned one where 3 rival families had been ambushed last year. Where bodies were found floating. Her heart kicked against her ribs. Is there something you need? Antonio's voice cut through her thoughts. She met his eyes, really met them, for the first time in the 2 years she'd worked here. They were darker than she'd realized, carrying weight that expensive suits couldn't hide. No, sir. The words came automatically. He returned to his documents. Dismissed. Nadia finished cleaning, her mind racing. She could say nothing. Stay invisible. Stay safe. She had a daughter, Zoe, 8 years old, with braids Nadia wove every Sunday and dreams bigger than this city. Zoe was staying with Nadia's sister across town, protected from this world of blood and money. But Nadia had watched her brother bleed out on a sidewalk because no one warned him about the wrong corner at the wrong time. She'd held his hand while sirens screamed in the distance. Too late, always too late. She couldn't watch another man walk into death when she saw it coming. At the door she stopped. Her hand trembled on the handle. Mr. Reyes? What? Impatience sharpened his tone. She turned, her heart a war drum. Every instinct screamed to run, to swallow the words, to remember her place. But she'd spent her whole life remembering her place. And it had never saved anyone. That map, she said quietly. The coordinates are wrong. The room went cold. What would you do in Nadia's position? Stay silent and safe, or speak up and risk everything? Drop your thoughts below. Antonio's pen stopped mid-signature. The silence stretched like a blade between them. What did you say? His voice was dangerously soft. Nadia's throat went dry, but she'd already jumped. There was no climbing back to safety now. The coordinates on your map. They're wrong. He stood slowly, his 6-foot frame unfolding with predatory grace. You read coordinates. It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. My brother was a driver. I helped him navigate. Was. He's dead. She kept her voice steady. Wrong place, wrong time. Nobody warned him. Antonio moved around the desk, each step measured, deliberate. He didn't touch the map. Didn't look at it. His eyes stayed locked on hers, reading her the way men in his position learn to read everyone. Searching for the lie, the angle, the hidden knife. You're telling me, he said slowly, that you, a maid who's worked here for 2 years without saying more than yes, sir, and excuse me, just happened to notice an error in a map prepared by my most trusted lieutenant? I'm telling you that 40.7589 north, 73.9851 west isn't the warehouse district. Her voice gained strength. It's Pier 17. The abandoned one on the east side. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He knew the pier. Everyone in his world knew the pier. Where the Castellano family was ambushed, she continued. Last March. 7 men went in. None came out. Antonio's smile, that practiced, dangerous smile, began to form, a reflex, a shield. But something in her face, in the way she stood there trembling but unflinching, made it falter. The smile flickered like a dying light. And then it died completely. Why are you telling me this? The question was raw, unguarded. Because. Nadia's breath caught. Why was she? Because I see things. I'm invisible to most people here, Mr. Reyes. They talk around me, through me like I'm not even human. But I see. And I listen. And I know what betrayal looks like. Do you? It wasn't quite a question. Gabriel changed those coordinates. I saw him at your desk 3 days ago, when you were in the city. He had a pencil. He was. She stopped, realizing how insane this sounded. How impossible it would be to prove. Antonio turned back to the desk, His movements coiled with barely restrained violence. He grabbed the map, held it to the light. His finger traced the numbers she'd mentioned. In the margin, beneath the printed text, penciled coordinates. Light enough to miss unless you were looking. Unless you cleaned this desk every day and memorized its contents because vigilance was survival. This could be nothing, he said, but his voice had changed. A notation. A backup location. It could be. Nadia took one step closer, then another. Every nerve screamed at her to run, but she pressed forward. Or it could be the reason Gabriel's been meeting with Romano's people in the garden. The reason he always takes calls on his personal phone now instead of the secure line. He volunteered to plan this route himself when you usually handle security personally. Antonio's knuckles whitened around the map's edge. You're accusing my most trusted man. I'm telling you what I've seen. Her voice rose, months of silence breaking like a dam. I'm telling you that if you follow this map, you will die. Your enemies will win. And I. She stopped, surprised by the crack in her own voice. I can't watch another person walk into an ambush when I know. When I knew and said nothing. The room pulsed with tension. Outside, a car door slammed. Voices echoed in the hallway, the rest of his security detail, probably. Normal evening routines in a house built on blood. Antonio stared at her. Really stared, like she just materialized from thin air. Like he was seeing her for the first time. Seeing the intelligence in her eyes, the exhaustion in her shoulders, the desperate courage it took to stand in his study and call his most trusted lieutenant a traitor. What's your name? He asked quietly. She blinked. Sir. Your name. Your full name. Nadia. Nadia Baptiste. He set the map down carefully, like it might explode. Nadia Baptiste. How long have you worked in my house? 2 years, 3 months. And in all that time, I never asked your name. It wasn't a question. It was a confession. The study door burst open. Gabriel strode in, his phone in hand, irritation creasing his handsome features. Antonio, we need to. He stopped, eyes landing on Nadia. Why is the help still here? The word, help, hit like a slap. Nadia felt herself shrinking, old habits taking over, invisibility creeping back like armor. But Antonio's next words stopped her retreat cold. Miss Baptiste was just bringing an irregularity to my attention. His voice was ice. Regarding our Thursday operation. Gabriel's expression smoothed too quickly. Oh. What kind of irregularity? The coordinates on our map. Antonio tapped the paper. They appear to have been altered. Altered? Gabriel laughed, but the sound was hollow. That's absurd. I prepared that map myself, triple-checked everything. Then explain why the coordinates lead to Pier 17. The laughter died. Gabriel's eyes flicked to Nadia, really saw her for the first time, and something dark moved across his face. Calculation. Threat. With all respect, Antonio, you're taking the word of a maid over mine? The venom in his voice made Nadia flinch. She probably can't even read a map properly. This is ridiculous. Can you prove these coordinates are correct? Antonio interrupted, his tone lethal. Can she prove they're not? Gabriel shot back. This is paranoia. You're letting some cleaning woman poison your mind right before the most important deal of your career. Get out. The words were quiet. Absolute. Gabriel's face flushed. Antonio. I said, get out. For a moment, Gabriel looked like he might argue. His hand twitched toward his jacket, toward where Nadia knew men like him kept their weapons. But Antonio's gaze held him frozen, alpha dominance crackling in the air like electricity. Gabriel left, but not before turning at the door, his eyes finding Nadia's. The look promised consequences. When the door closed, Antonio sank into his chair. The mask cracked further, revealing something Nadia had never seen in this house: uncertainty. Fear. "If you're wrong," he said softly, "you've just made yourself a target. Gabriel doesn't forgive." "If I'm right," Nadia countered, "I just saved your life." His eyes found hers again, held them. "Why?" The question was barely a whisper. "You owe me nothing. Less than nothing. I don't even—" He stopped, shame flashing across his features. "I didn't even know your name." Nadia thought of her brother. Of Zoe sleeping across town, safe in her aunt's apartment. Of all the invisible women who'd come before her, cleaning floors and swallowing words and dying without ever being seen. "Because someone should," she said simply. "Someone should warn you. Someone should care if you live or die, even if you've never noticed them before." Something shifted in Antonio's face. The armor he'd worn for 20 years, through gang wars and betrayals and countless nights alone in this mansion, cracked just a little wider. And for the first time since his brother died, Antonio Reyes felt something like gratitude. Something like hope. Something terrifyingly close to trust. Antonio didn't sleep that night. He sat in his study until dawn, the map spread before him like an accusation. 3 times he reached for his phone to call Gabriel, to demand answers, to test loyalties with carefully crafted questions. 3 times he stopped himself. If Nadia was right, if Gabriel had truly betrayed him, then confronting him directly would only accelerate the timeline. The trap would snap shut faster. If she was wrong. He pressed his palms against his eyes, feeling the weight of 2 decades in this life. He'd survived this long by trusting his instincts, by reading people like text, by never letting sentiment cloud judgment. And now he was considering the word of a woman he'd never bothered to notice over the counsel of a man who'd stood beside him for 7 years. But that look in her eyes, that desperate, bone-deep certainty. He'd seen that look before. In his brother's eyes, the night before he died. Mateo had warned him about the Ortega deal, said something felt wrong. Antonio had dismissed him, told him he was being paranoid. They'd found Mateo's body 3 days later. Antonio stood abruptly, pacing to the window. The eastern sky was bleeding pink and gold. In the servants' wing, lights were beginning to flicker on. Nadia would be awake soon, preparing breakfast for a household that barely acknowledged her existence. He grabbed his phone. Not Gabriel. Someone else. "Get me everything on Nadia Baptiste," he told his head of security, Marcus. "Employment history, family, known associates. Everything. And I want surveillance footage from my study for the past 2 weeks. Every person who entered when I wasn't present. Sir. Just do it." He ended the call, then made another. "Cancel the Thursday operation. Tell the Costas we're postponing." The voice on the other end protested. This deal had taken months to arrange. The families were already positioning. Backing out now would look like weakness. "I said cancel it." Antonio's voice brooked no argument. "Tell them, technical difficulties. We'll reschedule." When he hung up, his hands were shaking. In the servants' quarters, Nadia stared at her ceiling, her heart still racing from last night. She'd barely made it to her small room before her legs gave out, adrenaline crash hitting her like a physical blow. "What have you done?" Her phone buzzed. A text from her sister, Renee. "Zoe's asking when you're coming to visit. She misses you." Nadia typed back. "Soon. Tell her I love her." She couldn't tell Renee the truth. Couldn't say that she just accused a made man of treachery in front of a mafia boss. that she might have signed her own death warrant with coordinates and accusations. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. You made a mistake tonight. Servants who forget their place don't last long in this house. Gee. The blood drained from Nadia's face. Gabriel. He had her number. Of course he did. HR kept records of everything. She deleted the message with trembling fingers, but the threat lingered like smoke. A knock at her door made her jump. Ms. Baptiste. She opened it to find Marcus, the head of security. A mountain of a man who'd never spoken to her directly before. Mr. Reyes wants to see you. Now. Antonio was still in his study when she arrived, the map gone from his desk. In its place sat a laptop, surveillance footage frozen on the screen. Sit, he said, not looking at her. Nadia perched on the edge of a chair, feeling like she was facing judgment. Maybe she was. I ran your background, Antonio said flatly. Nadia Marie Baptiste. 29. Born in Brooklyn. Father unknown. Mother died when you were 16. Cancer. Raised your younger brother Jerome, while working 2 jobs. He was killed 2 years ago in a drive-by. Unintended target. He finally looked at her. You have a daughter. Zoe. 8 years old. Living with your sister in Queens. Nadia's chest tightened. Why are you telling me what I already know? Because I need to understand why you'd risk yourself. Risk her. He leaned forward. You have a child, Ms. Baptiste. And you just made an enemy of a very dangerous man. So I'll ask you again, why? I told you. The truth this time. His voice sharpened. Not the noble answer. The real reason. Nadia's hands clenched in her lap. The room felt too small, the air too thin. Because I'm tired, she said finally, the words raw. I'm tired of being invisible. Tired of watching powerful men destroy each other while people like me clean up the blood. My brother died because he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and nobody thought his life was worth a warning. Her voice cracked. So maybe I'm selfish. Maybe I just needed to matter. To know that I saw something and did something instead of staying quiet like a good little maid. The silence stretched between them. Gabriel sent you a message, Antonio said quietly. I have access to all phones registered to this household. Servants who forget their place don't last long. Nadia's blood went cold. He's threatened you, Antonio continued. Which means one of 2 things. Either you're right and he's trying to silence you, or you're wrong and he's rightfully angry about being falsely accused. He stood, moving to the window. I've postponed Thursday's operation. Told the Costas we need more time. You believe me? Nadia couldn't keep the surprise from her voice. I don't know what I believe. He turned to face her. But I've watched 7 years of surveillance footage from this study. And you're right. Gabriel was at my desk 3 days ago when I was gone. 4:47 seconds. Long enough to alter coordinates. Hope flared in Nadia's chest. But that doesn't prove intent, Antonio continued, crushing that hope. It proves opportunity. Nothing more. He could have been checking the map, making a legitimate notation. I need more than your intuition and 47 seconds of footage before I destroy a 7-year partnership. So what happens now? Nadia asked. Now. Antonio's smile returned, that cold, calculated expression. Now we wait. I keep you close. Claim you're under my protection for bringing this to my attention. Gabriel can't touch you without revealing his hand. And we watch him. See if he panics. See if he makes a move. You're using me as bait. I'm keeping you alive. His voice hardened. The moment you spoke last night, you became a piece on the board. The only question is whether you're my peace or his. Nadia stood, anger overriding fear. I'm not anyone's peace. I'm a human being who tried to help you. And now you're in danger because of it. Antonio moved closer, his presence overwhelming. So you have two choices, Ms. Baptiste. You can leave this house right now, take your daughter, and run as far as you can. I'll give you money, new identities, a chance to disappear. Or you stay. You help me figure out who I can trust in my own organization. And if you're right about Gabriel, if he really is planning to kill me, then you help me turn his trap back on him. Nadia thought of Zoe. Of the life they could have if she ran. Safety. Anonymity. Peace. But she also thought of her brother, dying on that sidewalk. Of all the time she'd stayed quiet, stayed invisible, stayed safe while the world burned around her. If I stay, she said slowly, I want something in return. Antonio's eyebrow lifted. You're negotiating? Now. You said it yourself. I'm a piece on the board. So let's make sure I'm playing for something that matters. She met his eyes. If we survive this, if we prove Gabriel's betrayal, I want a real job. Not cleaning floors. Something where my brain matters as much as my hands. Where I can provide for Zoe without working 16-hour days. For the first time since she'd met him, Antonio Reyes smiled. A real smile. You have audacity, Ms. Baptiste. I'll give you that. Do we have a deal? He extended his hand. We have a deal. When Nadia shook it, she felt the calluses on his palm. Unexpected evidence that this man, for all his wealth and power, had once known physical labor. Had climbed from somewhere lower to reach this height. Maybe they weren't so different after all. One more thing, Antonio said as she turned to leave. Gabriel's watching you now. Be careful. Trust no one in this house except me. I don't trust you either, Nadia said honestly. Antonio's smile widened. Good. That might be the only thing that keeps you alive. The explosion came at 2:47 a.m. Nadia was dreaming of Zoe, her daughter's laughter echoing through a park they'd never been able to afford visiting, when the blast shattered every window on the mansion's east wing. She hit the floor on instinct, glass raining down like deadly snow, her ears ringing with the aftermath. Gunfire followed. Sharp cracks splitting the night. Gabriel. The thought came immediately, certain. He'd made his move. Nadia crawled toward her door, staying low. The hallway was chaos, servants screaming, security shouting coordinates, the acrid smell of smoke choking the air. Emergency lights cast everything in hellish red. Everyone to the panic rooms. Marcus's voice boomed. Now. This is not a drill. Nadia let herself be swept along with the others, her mind racing. Where was Antonio? Was he already dead? Had Gabriel? A hand clamped around her wrist, yanking her sideways into a service corridor. She opened her mouth to scream, but another hand covered it. It's me. Antonio's voice, rough and urgent in her ear. She sagged with relief, then stiffened as she felt the wet warmth spreading across his shirt. Blood. You're hit. Grazed. Move. He pulled her deeper into the corridor, away from the fleeing servants. His other hand held a gun, and in the red emergency lighting, he looked every inch the dangerous man she'd always known he was. They ran through passages Nadia had cleaned 100 times but never understood the purpose of. Secret corridors built into the mansion's bones, escape routes for a man who'd always known his empire might crumble. Antonio stopped at what looked like a solid wall, pressed a panel, and a door clicked open. He shoved her inside first, then followed, sealing them in. The room was small, windowless, a safe room built like a vault. Medical supplies lined one wall. Monitors showed security feeds from throughout the mansion. Water, food, weapons, everything needed to survive a siege. On the screens, Nadia watched Gabriel directing the attack. He wasn't even hiding it anymore, walking through the smoke with a phone to his ear, pointing men toward specific rooms. Hunting. He's looking for you, she whispered. He's looking for both of us. Antonio collapsed into a chair, his hand pressed to his side. Blood seeped between his fingers. The moment you warned me, I became a problem. And when I postponed the Thursday operation. He laughed bitterly. I forced his hand. He had to move now before I could dig deeper. Nadia grabbed the medical kit, her hands surprisingly steady. Take off your shirt. Miss Baptiste. Take it off or bleed out. Your choice. He obeyed, wincing as the fabric pulled away from the wound. Nadia had stitched her brother up twice, once from a broken bottle, once from something he never explained. Her hands remembered the motions, even as her heart hammered. The bullet had carved a groove across his ribs, deep enough to bleed heavily, shallow enough to miss anything vital. Lucky. This will hurt, she warned, dousing the wound with antiseptic. Antonio's jaw clenched, but he didn't make a sound. She worked quickly, butterfly bandages pulling the skin closed, gauze wrapping around his torso. Her fingers brushed over old scars, so many stories written on his skin, each one a close call, a lesson learned in violence. Your brother, Antonio said suddenly, his voice tight with pain. How did he die? Really? Nadia's hands paused. Why does it matter? Because we might die in this room. His eyes found hers. And I'd like to know you before that happens. The real you. Not the invisible woman who cleaned my floors. She resumed wrapping, focusing on the bandage instead of his face. Jerome was making a delivery. Wrong neighborhood. Wrong time. He got caught in crossfire between the Santos crew and some out-of-state dealers trying to move in. Her throat tightened. He called me while he was bleeding. Told me he loved me. Told me to take care of Zoe. I was 15 minutes away and he died in 11. I'm sorry. Are you? The words came out sharper than intended. Men like you start wars that kill men like Jerome. And people like me just clean up after. Antonio was quiet for a long moment. My brother was 17 when he died. Matteo. He was smarter than me, kinder than me. Should have been the one running things. He gestured vaguely at the monitors. I ignored his warning about a deal. Thought I knew better. Thought my instincts were sharper. They found him in a dumpster 3 days later. Nadia finished the bandage, sitting back. Is that why you didn't dismiss me completely? When I warned you about Gabriel? Maybe. His eyes were dark, haunted. Or maybe I'm just tired of being wrong about who to trust. On the monitors, Gabriel was getting closer, checking rooms systematically. His men fanning out through the mansion. Whatever loyalty Antonio had inspired in his organization, Gabriel had clearly bought enough of it to mount this attack. How long can we stay here? Nadia asked. 72 hours. Maybe more if we ration. Antonio stood, moving to the weapons cache. But Gabriel knows about this room. Not the location. I built it after he joined me, but he knows it exists. He'll find it eventually. So we're trapped. We're alive. He pulled out a second gun, checked the magazine. Which is more than we'd be if you hadn't warned me. I had Marcus watching Gabriel after our conversation. When the attack started, Marcus got me out in time. His expression darkened. Marcus didn't make it. Nadia's chest ached. She'd barely known Marcus, but he'd been kind in his brief interactions with her. Another casualty in a war she'd inadvertently escalated. "This is my fault," she said quietly.
"This was inevitable."
Antonio moved back to the monitors, scanning feeds. "Gabriel's been planning this for months, probably. You just exposed it early.
Saved my life in the process.
For what? So we can die in a box instead of in our beds." He turned to her, and something in his expression made her breath catch. "You know what's strange? I've been in this life for 20 years. Faced death more times than I can count.
And I've never been afraid of it."
He took a step closer. "But right now, in this room with you, I'm terrified.
Of dying. Of wasting whatever time we have left."
His voice dropped. "I didn't know your name 3 days ago, Nadia. And now you're the only person in this world I trust. How does that happen?" She stood, closing the distance between them. "Maybe because I'm the only person who had nothing to gain from keeping you alive. No power to grab. No money to inherit. I warned you because it was the right thing to do.
Not because of what you could do for me.
You asked for a job. Better pay. After.
As a condition of survival.
She smiled slightly.
Not as a reason to save you."
Antonio's hand lifted, hesitating near her face, as if he'd forgotten how to offer comfort. Or had never learned.
"If we survive this." "When we survive this," she corrected.
His smile was soft, genuine. "When we survive this, that job is yours. And anything else you want. I want to know you're not just saying that because we're trapped and afraid." "I'm saying it because," he stopped, something vulnerable flickering across his face.
"Because you saw me."
Really saw me. Not the money, not the power, not the monster everyone else sees.
You looked past all of it and decided I was worth saving anyway."
Before Nadia could respond, the monitors flickered. Gabriel's face filled one screen. He'd found a camera, was speaking directly into it. "Antonio, I know you're watching." His voice was calm, almost friendly. "This doesn't have to end badly. Come out, we'll talk, figure something out. You're right. I did alter those coordinates. But it wasn't about killing you. It was about taking what you've built and making it better. Cleaner. More efficient." "He's lying," Nadia said.
"I know."
Antonio's expression had gone cold again, the vulnerability shuddering away. "He's testing to see if we're together.
If he mentions you."
"And bring out the maid," Gabriel continued, confirming Antonio's suspicion. "Miss Baptiste, was it? The one who's been filling your head with paranoia. She's caused quite a bit of trouble for someone so insignificant." The word stung more than it should have. "Here's what's going to happen," Gabriel said. "You have 1 hour to surrender. After that, I start killing servants. 1 every 10 minutes.
Starting with the young ones."
His smile was venomous. "I believe there's a girl in the kitchen. Maria's daughter. What is she, 14?
15.
Nadia's blood ran cold. "That's not a negotiation," Antonio said quietly. "That's an execution schedule." On screen, Gabriel checked his watch. 1 hour. Antonio.
"Don't make me do this."
The feed cut out. Nadia and Antonio stood in the sudden silence, the weight of impossible choices pressing down on them. "We can't let him kill them," Nadia said. "If we go out there, we die.
And he kills them anyway.
So what do we do?" Antonio moved to a panel in the wall, pulled it open to reveal another screen. "We do what Gabriel doesn't expect." His fingers flew across a keyboard. "We fight back. If you were Antonio, Would you sacrifice yourself to save the innocent, or find another way? What would honor demand? Let me know in the comments. This mansion has secrets even Gabriel doesn't know about, Antonio said, his fingers still dancing across the keyboard. My father built it 40 years ago. He was paranoid. Smart. The screen showed a blueprint. Tunnels, passages, access points spiderwebbing through the walls. Gabriel thinks he's trapped us. But these walls have been waiting for this moment since before I was born. Nadia studied the schematic, her mind racing. You can move through the house without being seen. We can move through the house. He looked at her. But I need your help. You know the servants' routines, their hiding places, where they'd go in a crisis. The wine cellar, Nadia said immediately. It's reinforced. Mrs. Chen always said it was the safest place if anything ever happened. That's where they'll be. Antonio pulled up camera feeds, cycling through until he found it. 23 people huddled in the wine cellar. Servants, kitchen staff, the young girl Gabriel had threatened. Maria clutched her daughter close, terror written across both their faces. Gabriel has men stationed at the main entrance, Antonio observed. But there's a service tunnel that connects to the old root cellar. Runs parallel to the wine storage. If we can reach them, we can evacuate them through the eastern passages. And then what? Gabriel controls the grounds. Then we call in favors. His expression hardened. Gabriel thinks he's bought everyone's loyalty. But there are still men in this city who remember my father. Who remember what loyalty actually means. He made a call, speaking rapid Spanish to someone named Ernesto. Nadia caught fragments. Betrayal, war, blood debt. When he hung up, some of the tension had left his shoulders. 30 minutes, he said. Ernesto's bringing crew. They'll secure a perimeter outside the eastern gate. That's not enough time. It has to be. Antonio opened a panel in the wall, revealing a narrow passage. We move now or those people die. The passage was barely wide enough for Antonio's shoulders. They moved in darkness, Nadia's hand on his back to keep pace. The air was stale, thick with decades of dust. She could hear Antonio's labored breathing. The wound was taking its toll, draining him with every step. Stop, she whispered. You need to rest. No time. 30 seconds. Please. He sagged against the wall, and even in the darkness, she could feel him trembling. The bandage was wet again, bleeding through. Tell me about Mateo, she said quietly, needing to keep him talking, keep him conscious. Your brother. Antonio's breath hitched. Why? Because I told you about Jerome. Because if we're going to die tonight, I want to know what you're fighting for. What you lost. Silence stretched between them, broken only by their breathing and the distant sounds of Gabriel's men searching the mansion above. Mateo was everything I wasn't, Antonio finally said. Patient. Thoughtful. He wanted to go legitimate, turn the family business into something clean. Real estate. Restaurants. He had plans. His voice cracked slightly. I laughed at him. Told him he was naive. That men like us don't get clean endings. But you listen to him? Sometimes. Not enough. Antonio's hand found hers in the darkness. Whether for comfort or balance, she wasn't sure. The night before he died, he came to my room. 2 a.m. said he couldn't sleep. Said the Ortega deal felt wrong, that Vincent Ortega was too eager, too accommodating. Mateo had this instinct for people, you know? Could read them like books. What did you say? I told him he was paranoid. That I'd vetted Ortega personally, that the deal was solid. Antonio's grip on her hand tightened. I told him to trust me. And he did. Because that's what brothers do. Nadia's throat ached. It wasn't your fault. Wasn't it? The words were raw. I was so arrogant. So sure I knew better. And Matteo paid the price. They tortured him. Nadia. 3 days. Left him alive just long enough for me to find him, to hear him beg me to. He stopped, unable to finish. To end it, Nadia whispered, understanding. I held my brother while he died. Held the gun that. Antonio's voice broke completely. I was 19. And I learned that day that trust is a luxury men like me can't afford. Nadia squeezed his hand. Is that why you never learned my name? Why you kept everyone at a distance? I told myself it was strategic. That caring makes you vulnerable, exploitable. He laughed bitterly. But really? I was just a coward. Too afraid to see people as human because then I'd have to face what I'd become. What this life had made me. You're not a monster, Antonio. You don't know what I've done. I know you postponed a deal because a maid warned you about bad coordinates. I know you're bleeding and exhausted and you're still trying to save people who are paid to serve you, not die for you. She shifted closer in the darkness. I know that when you had the chance to throw me to Gabriel, to save yourself, you didn't. Maybe I should have. But his hand stayed in hers. Why didn't you? The silence that followed was different, charged with something neither of them could name yet. Because when you looked at me, Antonio said finally, for the first time in 20 years, I didn't see fear or calculation or ambition. I saw someone who gave a damn whether I lived or died. Not because of what I could do for them, but because, he paused. Because you're good. In a way I've forgotten how to be. Nadia's breath caught. I'm not good. I'm terrified. I have a daughter I might never see again because I couldn't keep my mouth shut. You have a daughter you're trying to make a better world for. His voice was fierce now. Every choice you've made has been about protecting people. Saving people. Even me. Especially you, she whispered. In the darkness, she felt him shift closer. Felt his breath on her face. Nadia. A crash above them. Footsteps, shouts. Gabriel's men were getting closer to discovering the passages. We have to move, Antonio said, the moment fracturing. But before they continued, Nadia felt him press something into her palm. Cold metal. Small. What? My brother's ring, Antonio said quietly. I've carried it for 20 years. If something happens to me, I want you to have it. To remember that someone saw you too. Really saw you. Tears burned Nadia's eyes. Nothing's going to happen to you. Promise me. If it comes down to choosing between saving me or saving those people in the cellar, you choose them. Antonio. Promise me, Nadia. She closed her fingers around the ring, feeling the weight of his trust, his loss, his desperate hope for redemption. I promise, she lied. Because the truth was, somewhere in the last 72 hours, this dangerous man with blood on his hands and ghosts in his eyes had become something she couldn't afford. Someone worth saving, no matter the cost. They reached the access point to the root cellar 15 minutes later. Through the wall, they could hear Gabriel's voice, cold and precise. Time's up, Antonio. Since you're not answering, I'm going to assume you're choosing pride over lives. Antonio's hand was already on his gun. Wait, Nadia breathed. Look. Through a crack in the panel, they could see into the wine cellar. Gabriel stood at the entrance, 2 armed men flanking him. But his positioning was wrong. He had his back partially to the root cellar entrance, confident it was just a dead-end storage space. He didn't know about the tunnel. I can get to them, Nadia whispered. While you draw his attention. Absolutely not. You're injured and he'll recognize you immediately. But me. She touched his face in the darkness. I'm just the help. Insignificant, remember? I can move through that cellar without him seeing me as a threat until it's too late. He'll kill you. Not if you're shooting at him. Antonio grabbed her shoulders. This is insane. I won't let you. You don't let me do anything, Nadia said firmly. I choose this. The same way I chose to warn you. The same way I chose to stay. She pressed the ring back into his hand. Hold on to this. I'm not dying tonight. Neither are you. We're both walking out of here. Nadia. She kissed him. Quick, fierce, desperate. A promise and a goodbye and a beginning all at once. Then she was moving, slipping through the panel into the root cellar before he could stop her. Behind her she heard Antonio whisper, God help me, I think I love you. And then the shooting started. Chaos erupted. Antonio's first shot shattered the wine cellar's overhead light, plunging the room into darkness. Gabriel dove for cover, shouting orders. His men opening fire toward the sound. Muzzle flashes strobed like lightning, illuminating terrified faces in frozen snapshots. Nadia stayed low, using the confusion to slip between wine racks. The servants huddled in the corner, Maria shielding her daughter with her body. Nadia pressed a finger to her lips as she reached them, gesturing frantically toward the root cellar entrance. Trust me, she mouthed. Maria's eyes widened with recognition, then understanding. She began moving people silently, passing the message along. Move, stay quiet, follow Nadia. Above them, Antonio's tactical positioning was brilliant. He fired from multiple angles, using the passage openings to create the illusion of several shooters. Gabriel's men were disoriented, shooting at shadows. But Antonio was fading. Nadia could hear it in the gaps between his shots. Longer pauses, ragged breathing echoing through the walls. Go! She urged the last of the servants into the tunnel. 22 people. One left. Maria's daughter, frozen in fear, wouldn't move. Bella, please, Maria begged from the tunnel entrance. The girl was paralyzed, tears streaming down her face, her breath coming in panicked gasps. Nadia crawled back, glass crunching under her knees. She took the girl's face in her hands. Hey, look at me. Look at me, Bella. The girl's eyes focused on hers. I have a daughter too. Her name is Zoe. She's 8. And she's waiting for me to come home. Nadia's voice was steady, certain. Just like your mama's waiting to get you out of here. But I need you to be brave for 30 more seconds. Can you do that? Bella nodded shakily. Good girl. Now. The gunfire stopped. In the sudden silence, Gabriel's voice rang out. Clever. Antonio. Using the passages. My mistake for not knowing about them. A pause. But you're bleeding. I can smell it. How much longer can you keep this up? No response from Antonio. Nadia's heart seized. She locked eyes with Maria. Get her out. All of you, Eastern Passage, don't stop. Ernesto's men will meet you. What about you? Maria whispered. I'm getting Antonio. Before Maria could protest, Nadia was moving back toward the wine cellar proper. She grabbed a bottle, a 1947 Chateau something, probably worth more than her yearly salary, and waited. Gabriel emerged from cover, cautious, his gun sweeping the room. 2 steps. 3. He was almost to the passage entrance where Antonio had last fired. Nadia threw the bottle. It shattered against the wall behind Gabriel, and he spun, firing reflexively at the sound. In that instant, Nadia dove through a different passage opening, the one that led to Antonio's position. She found him slumped against the wall, the gun loose in his hand, his shirt soaked through with blood. "You beautiful idiot," she breathed, pressing her hands to his wound. "What did you do?" "Kept my promise." His smile was weak. "Everyone out?" "Everyone's safe. Now we need to get you." "Can't." He gestured to his leg. She hadn't noticed in the darkness. Another wound, this one worse. A bullet had torn through his thigh. Hit the femoral. "I've been applying pressure, but—" His makeshift tourniquet was already saturated. "No." The word came out fierce. "You don't get to die. Not now. Not after." Her voice broke. "After what?" His hand found her face, thumb brushing her cheek. "After you kissed me? After I realized I can't lose you." The admission tore out of her. "I just found you, Antonio. The real you. You don't get to leave." "Nadia." "We're both walking out of here." "That's what I said. That's what's happening." She tore fabric from her shirt, adding pressure to the wound. Antonio winced but didn't make a sound. "Tell me about Zoe," he said quietly. "What?" "Your daughter. Tell me about her. Keep me conscious." Nadia's hands worked automatically, tightening the tourniquet, buying time. "She's brilliant. Reads everything. Wants to be a scientist." A laugh escaped, half sob. "She asks a million questions. Mama, why is the sky blue? Mama, where do stars go during the day? Mama, if you could meet anyone in history, who would it be? Who would it be?" Antonio's eyes were struggling to focus. "My grandmother. She died before I was born, but my mother always said she was the strongest woman she'd ever known. Raised 6 kids alone, worked 3 jobs, never complained." Nadia's voice steadied as she talked. "I named Zoe after her. Zoe Marie. I wanted my daughter to have that strength. She does." Antonio's hand covered hers. "She has you. Stay with me," Nadia urged as his eyes drifted. "Tell me about Mateo. Happy memories. Before everything went wrong." Antonio's breath was shallow. "He used to make me breakfast. Every Sunday. Terrible cook. Burned everything." A genuine smile. "But he tried. Always tried. Said families should eat together. That's what kept you human." "What did he make?" "Pancakes. Like hockey pucks." Antonio's laugh turned into a cough. "I pretended they were good. Ate every one. Now I'd give everything for one more burned pancake." Footsteps echoed in the passage. Heavy, multiple sets. Gabriel had found the entrance. "Time to come out, Antonio." Gabriel's voice was closer now. "You've lost too much blood. You know it. I know it. Let's end this with dignity." Nadia looked at Antonio's gun, then at her own hands, shaking but determined. "Can you shoot?" Antonio whispered. "I've never." "Point. Squeeze. Don't think." He pressed the gun into her hands. "If he comes through that opening, you fire until it's empty. You understand?" "Antonio." "You promised Zoe you'd come home." His eyes held hers with desperate intensity. "So you do whatever it takes. You survive. Even if I don't." "We both survive," Nadia insisted. But she took the gun. The footsteps stopped just outside their section of passage. "Last chance," Gabriel called. Nadia raised the gun with trembling hands, pointed it at the opening. Her heart hammered so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. But then, gunfire. Different this time. Coming from outside the mansion. Ernesto. The cavalry had arrived. Gabriel cursed, his footsteps retreating rapidly. Shouts echoed through the mansion. His men scrambling, caught between Antonio's reinforcements outside and wherever Antonio's injured body was hiding inside. "The tide's turning," Antonio murmured, his eyes brightening slightly. "Then let's get you out of here." Nadia held his arm over her shoulder. He was bigger than her, heavier, but adrenaline made her strong. "Ernesto's men can handle Gabriel. We need to get you to a hospital." "Nadia, I can't." "You can. We can." She pulled him forward, step by agonizing step. "You're going to survive this. And then you're going to have breakfast with me and Zoe. And I'll make you pancakes. Probably burn them. And you'll eat every one and pretend they're good. Just like you did for Matteo." Antonio's laugh was wet, pained. "That's a hell of future you're planning. Get used to it." They reached an exit point, one that led to the Eastern Gardens. Through the panel, Nadia could see Ernesto's men had Gabriel's forces pinned down. "Because you're stuck with me now." She pushed the panel open, dragging Antonio into the cool night air. He collapsed onto the grass, blood blooming dark against the green. "Ernesto!" Nadia screamed. "Help!" Two men rushed over, seasoned soldiers who took one look at Antonio and started working immediately, applying proper pressure, calling for a medic. Nadia stepped back, her hands covered in his blood, her whole body shaking. Antonio's hand shot out, catching her wrist. "Don't leave. I'm right here." She knelt beside him, taking his hand. "I'm not going anywhere." "You should," he said, his voice fading. "Still time. Take your daughter. Run. Be safe." "Too late for that." Nadia squeezed his hand. "You already offered me a job, remember? Can't back out now." His smile was beautiful, even through the pain. "Stubborn woman. Stubborn man." She leaned close. "You told me something. In the passage. Before I left." "Did I?" But his eyes were knowing. "Say it again. When you're not bleeding out. When you can mean it properly." "I meant it then," Antonio whispered. "Never meant anything more." The medic arrived with a stretcher. They lifted Antonio carefully, starting in 4, working with efficient urgency. "She comes," Antonio ordered as they moved him. "She stays with me." No one argued with a dying Mafia boss. Nadia climbed into the ambulance, still holding his hand. As the doors closed, she heard the final gunshots. Gabriel's last stand ending badly. For him. "We made it," she told Antonio as the sirens wailed. "We're both walking out." "Well," she looked at the stretcher. "You're being carried, but still. We made it. Together," he murmured, his eyes finally closing. "Together," she agreed, bringing his blood-stained hand to her lips. In the distance, dawn was breaking. And against all odds, they were both alive to see it. The hospital room was sterile white, antiseptic-scented, filled with the rhythmic beeping of machines keeping Antonio alive. 3 days since the attack. 3 days of surgeries, transfusions, and touch-and-go moments where Nadia sat in the waiting room, praying to a God she wasn't sure listened to women like her. But Antonio survived. Gabriel didn't. Ernesto's men had made sure of that. Nadia should have felt relief. Instead, she felt hollowed out, waiting for the other shoe to drop. It dropped on the 4th day. She was dozing in the chair beside Antonio's bed when voices in the hallway woke her. Sharp, argumentative voices that didn't belong in a hospital's hushed atmosphere. Not appropriate for someone of her position. Taking advantage of a vulnerable man. Knows exactly what she's doing. Nadia's stomach dropped as three men in expensive suits pushed into the room. She recognized one, Vincent Romano, head of one of the 5 families. The others were strangers, but their eyes held the same cold calculation. "Miss Baptiste," Romano said, his voice dripping false courtesy. "We need you to leave." "I'm not going anywhere." Nadia stood, positioning herself between them and Antonio's bed. "This doesn't concern you," another man said. "This is family business. Organization business." "She stays." Antonio's voice was rough from intubation, but firm. He was awake, his dark eyes alert despite the pain medication. "Whatever you have to say, you say in front of her." Romano's smile was thin. "Very well. We've been reviewing the situation. Gabriel's betrayal. The attack. Your subsequent actions." He paused meaningfully. "Actions that include elevating a domestic servant to a position of confidence and authority that many find questionable." Questionable. Antonio tried to sit up, winced. "She saved my life." "Did she?" The third man stepped forward. "Or did she create a situation that required saving?" "Very convenient, wouldn't you say? A maid suddenly discovers a conspiracy. Warns you. Positions herself as indispensable. And now here she is, by your bedside, whispering in your ear while you're vulnerable and medicated." Nadia's blood went cold. "You think I planned this?" "We think," Romano said carefully, "that you're an opportunist. Whether you orchestrated Gabriel's betrayal or simply exploited it is irrelevant. What matters is that Antonio's judgment has been compromised." "My judgment is fine," Antonio growled. "Is it?" Romano pulled out a folder. "We have testimony from staff members. They say you've been distracted, emotional, making promises of employment and protection to someone who, by all accounts, is using your guilt and trauma to manipulate you." "That's a lie," Nadia said, her voice shaking with fury. "Is it?" Romano opened the folder, showed photographs. Nadia and Antonio in the safe room, in the passage, in the ambulance. Surveillance footage she didn't know existed. These show a degree of intimacy that goes beyond gratitude. You've gotten close to him very quickly, Ms. Baptiste. Some might say suspiciously quickly. Antonio's hand found hers, squeezed. "Get out." "We're trying to protect you," the third man said, "from making a mistake that could cost you everything. Your position, your reputation." "My heart." Antonio's voice was dangerous. "That what you're worried about? That I might actually care about someone who isn't part of this toxic, backstabbing world?" "We're worried," Romano said coldly, "that you're thinking with the wrong part of your anatomy, and that this woman will destroy everything your father built." The words hung in the air like poison. Nadia felt Antonio tense beside her, felt the rage building in him. But she also felt something else. Doubt. Not in her but in himself. The old fear creeping back. What if I'm wrong again? What if my feelings are making me blind? "Maybe they're right," Nadia heard herself say. Antonio's head whipped toward her. "What?" "Maybe I am a distraction." The words felt like swallowing glass. "Maybe you need to focus on rebuilding your organization, not on," she couldn't finish. "Don't." Antonio's voice broke. "Don't do this." But Romano smiled, sensing victory. "See? Even she understands. This was never going to work. Antonio. People like you and people like her. You exist in different worlds. It's better to end it now, before real damage is done." Nadia pulled her hand from Antonio's. It was the hardest thing she'd ever done. "I should go," she whispered. "Check on Zoe." Give you time to recover without me complicating everything. Nadia, please. I'll come back. Another lie. When things are settled. She walked out before she could see the look on his face. Before she could see whether it was relief or heartbreak. In the hallway, she made it 3 steps before collapsing against the wall, silent sobs racking her body. Behind her, she heard Romano's voice, satisfied. You'll thank us for this, Antonio. She would have destroyed you. And Antonio's response, hollow and defeated, she already has. 2 weeks passed like years. Nadia threw herself into caring for Zoe, pretending everything was fine. She found a new job, housekeeping at a hotel downtown. Less pay, longer hours, no dangerous mafia bosses bleeding out while she held their hands. Safer. Emptier. At night, she stared at Matteo's ring, which she'd stolen from Antonio's belongings before leaving the hospital. She knew she should return it. Knew keeping it was wrong. But it was all she had left of him. Zoe noticed, of course. Children always did. Mama, why are you sad? She asked one evening, curled against Nadia's side. I'm not sad, baby. You are. You cry at night. I hear you. Nadia's heart cracked a little more. Sometimes grown-ups get sad. It passes. Is it because of the man? Nadia froze. What man? The one you love. Zoe looked up at her with ancient 8-year-old wisdom. Auntie Renee said you met someone. But something went wrong. Auntie Renee talks too much, Nadia muttered. Do you love him? The question was so simple. So impossible to answer. It doesn't matter, Nadia said finally. Sometimes love isn't enough. That's stupid. Zoe's bluntness made Nadia laugh despite everything. Grandma always said love is the only thing that's ever enough. Everything else is just noise. When did you get so smart? I was born smart. You keep forgetting. Nadia hugged her daughter close, breathing in her shampoo-scented hair, trying to memorize this moment. This uncomplicated love that asked nothing except to be returned. But it wasn't uncomplicated anymore. Because Zoe deserved a mother who was whole, not half-dead inside. Who believed in more than just survival. Who believed in love. God help me, Nadia thought. I do love him. The realization should have scared her. Instead, it felt like coming home. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Miss Baptiste. A woman's voice. Professional. This is Dr. Chen from Metropolitan Hospital. Mr. Reyes has requested to see you. It's important that you come. Nadia's heart stopped. Is he okay? A pause. He's refusing treatment. He says he won't continue rehabilitation unless you're present. I'm sorry to involve you, but we're concerned about his recovery. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Antonio looked worse than she remembered. Thinner. Grayer. The vibrant, dangerous man she'd fallen for had been replaced by this hollow shell. You came, he said when she entered. You're refusing treatment? She kept her voice steady, professional. That's childish, says the woman who ran away. I didn't run. I left. There's a difference. Is there? He gestured to the chair. Sit. Please. She sat, keeping distance between them. Ama. They were wrong, Antonio said quietly. Romano and the others. About you. About us. Were they? You saved my life, Nadia. You didn't create the situation. You exposed it. And yes, I have feelings for you. Feelings that terrify me. But they're not weakness. His eyes burned into hers. They're the first real thing I've felt in 20 years. Antonio. I spent 2 weeks thinking about what Romano said. About whether I was being manipulated. Whether my judgment was compromised. He laughed bitterly. And you know what I realized? My judgment has been compromised my entire life. By pride. By fear. By the belief that caring about people makes you vulnerable. It does make you vulnerable, Nadia whispered. Yes, it does. He reached for her hand. She let him take it. But maybe vulnerability isn't weakness. Maybe it's the only thing that makes us human. Tears burned Nadia's eyes. Those men will never accept me. I'm not part of your world. Then I'll leave it. The words were simple. Final. I'm done. Nadia. Done with the organization, the violence, the endless cycle of betrayal and blood. Gabriel's death gave me an out. I can walk away, rebuild legitimately, like Matteo always wanted. You'd give up everything? For me. I'd give up everything for the chance to be the man you see when you look at me. His voice cracked. Because when you're around, I'm not a monster. I'm just Antonio. A man who makes you laugh and burns pancakes and might be worthy of love. You are worthy. The words came fierce, certain. You always were. You just needed to see it. I see it now. Because you showed me. He pulled her closer. So I'm asking, begging. Will you give us a real chance? No safe rooms, no gunfire, no lies. Just us. Building something real. Nadia thought of Zoe's words. Love is the only thing that's ever enough. She thought of her brother, dying on that sidewalk, his last words telling her to love fiercely and without regret. She thought of Antonio's hand in hers during the darkest moments, his confession in the passage, the way he protected her even when it cost him everything. On one condition, she said. Anything. You eat my terrible pancakes every Sunday. And you never, ever lie and say they're good. His laugh was the most beautiful sound she'd ever heard. Deal. 6 months later, Nadia stood in a kitchen that still felt too big, too expensive, too much. But it was starting to feel like home. Antonio had kept his promise. He'd stepped back from the organization, handed control to Ernesto with the understanding that the violent days were over. Legitimacy or nothing. Some had called him weak. Others, wise. Nadia called him brave. Mama, you're burning them again. Zoe called from the dining room. I am not. But smoke was curling from the pan. Nadia cursed, flipping the pancakes. They were indeed hockey pucks. Antonio appeared in the doorway, hair still wet from the shower, wearing jeans and a t-shirt instead of his usual suits. Domestic. Happy. Need help. His smile was soft, teasing. I need a miracle. How did Matteo make these look so easy? He didn't. They were always terrible. I just loved him too much to say so. Antonio wrapped his arms around her waist, chin resting on her shoulder. Just like I love you too much to tell you you're a disaster in the kitchen. You just told me. Did I? He kissed her neck. Must have slipped out. Gross. Zoe appeared, making exaggerated gagging sounds. Can you two stop being mushy for 5 seconds? I'm starving. Your mother's making breakfast, Antonio said seriously. You might want to have cereal as backup. Hey! Nadia swatted him with the spatula. Zoe giggled, and the sound filled the kitchen like sunlight. They ate together, all 3 of them, the burned pancakes swimming in syrup, conversation flowing easily. Zoe told them about her science project. Antonio helped her problem solve, his mind sharp in ways that had nothing to do with violence anymore. And Nadia watched them both, her heart so full it ached. After breakfast, Antonio pulled her aside while Zoe washed dishes. Part of their new routine, everyone contributed, everyone mattered. I have something for you. He pressed a small box into her hands. Antonio, you already gave me this house, the job. This is different. His eyes held hers. Open it. Inside was a key. Simple, brass, unremarkable. A key. To my father's restaurant. The one Matteo wanted to renovate, turn into something legitimate. Antonio's voice was thick with emotion. I've been working on it. Fixing it up. And I want you to run it with me. I don't know anything about running a restaurant. Neither do I. We'll learn together. He took her face in his hands. Build something real. Something good. Something our kids can inherit without blood on their hands. Our kids. Nadia's heart stuttered. I'm getting ahead of myself. But his smile said he wasn't sorry. One step at a time. First, the restaurant. Then, he pulled out another box, this one smaller, velvet. Nadia's breath stopped. Then, Antonio continued, dropping to one knee right there in the kitchen with Zoe watching from the doorway with wide eyes. I'd like to ask if you'll marry me. Not because I need saving. Not because you need protecting. But because I love you. Because you saw me when I was invisible to myself. Because you're the bravest, most stubborn, most beautiful person I've ever met. Tears streamed down Nadia's face. You're supposed to do this somewhere romantic. This is romantic. This is us. Burned pancakes and second chances and building something from the ruins. He opened the box, revealing a simple diamond ring. So what do you say, Ms. Baptiste? Will you marry a former Mafia boss with terrible judgment and a lot of baggage? Mama, say yes. Zoe shouted. I already like him. Nadia laughed through her tears, pulled Antonio to his feet, and kissed him with everything she had. Yes, she whispered against his lips. Yes to all of it. The restaurant, the marriage, the terrible pancakes, the complicated life. Yes. Antonio slipped the ring on her finger, and it fit perfectly. Like it had been waiting for her all along. Your enemies will win if you follow this map, Nadia said softly, echoing that first warning that had changed everything. Antonio smiled, pulling her close. But I followed you instead. And I won everything that matters. Later they found the old map, the one Gabriel had altered, the one that had started it all. Antonio burned it in the fireplace while Nadia watched, Zoe curled between them on the couch. As the paper turned to ash, Nadia thought about invisible women and dangerous men and the unexpected ways love could save you. She thought about her brother, hoping he'd be proud of the life she was building. The risks she'd taken. The love she'd chosen. What are you thinking? Antonio asked, his arm around her shoulders. That we're going to need a bigger table, Nadia said. 4 Sunday breakfasts. For when Renee visits. For when we have more kids. More kids. Antonio's eyebrow rose. Eventually. She smiled. One step at a time, remember? One step at a time, he agreed. And as dawn broke through the windows, their third sunrise together, their 300th, their first of forever, Nadia realized she'd finally found what she'd been searching for without knowing it. Not safety. Not wealth. Not even love exactly. But belonging. Being seen. Having someone choose her again and again, with full knowledge of who she was and what she'd risked and what she was worth. Everything. She was worth everything. And so was he. Love, second chances, and unexpected heroes. This story proves that the bravest choice is always to see and be seen. Have you ever taken a risk on someone the world told you to ignore? Or stood up when staying silent was easier? Share your story below. Your courage might inspire someone else to find theirs. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.